You ever look around and realize the whole place feels like one big dress rehearsal for a show? Nobody actually agreed to be in? That's modern society. Everybody's strutting around like they're the star of a play that doesn't even have a script. They wake up every morning, put on their I'm doing great face, walk outside and start performing for an audience that's too busy performing back to even notice. It's like a non-stop parade of people trying to look confident while desperately hoping nobody finds out. They've been winging it their entire lives. That's the human condition right there. We're all improvising, pretending we know what we're doing, and then the moment someone asks a real question, "Hey, are you actually okay?" The whole cast panics and pretends the question was rhetorical. People don't want to admit that they're unsure, insecure, or confused. Oh no, that would break the illusion, the sacred illusion of competence. So instead they walk around with that inflated I've got it all figured out ego like a balloon at a birthday party on strong breeze, and the damn thing just floats away. And you can see the strain on their faces. You can watch people try to maintain that confidence, that swagger, that sparkle of I'm important. Meanwhile, behind the eyes, there's this tiny, trembling voice whispering, "Oh, please don't let the world realize I Googled how to boil an egg." But everyone plays along. Everyone participates in this big societal improv show. Because the moment someone drops the act, everyone else gets uncomfortable. You ever tell the truth in a conversation and watch the entire room malfunction? They don't know what to do with it. You say, "I have no idea what's going on." And suddenly people look at you like you're some unlicensed emotional firework about to go off. That's how fragile the whole thing is. It's held together by nothing but mutual agreement. You pretend you're fine, I pretend I'm fine. And together we will create this magical world where nobody ever needs help. And then we all go home exhausted from pretending. And the funniest part is people actually believe other people have their act together. They see someone with a shiny watch or a fancy job title and think, "Wow, that person must be so confident." Meanwhile, that same person is probably Googling how to appear confident during lunch breaks like they're studying for a pop quiz. Everyone is insecure, but ego tells them to disguise it. Ego demands it. Huh? Ego says, "Listen, nobody can know you're terrified, so puff out your chest, walk like you on the sidewalk, and nod thoughtfully at things you don't understand." You ever notice people nod at things they clearly can't comprehend? Someone uses a big word and suddenly everyone becomes an expert. Their face freezes, eyebrows lift, chin tightens. Classic I totally know what that means pose. Meanwhile, their brain is frantically flipping through its dictionary like a panicked librarian. It's all ego. Ego is like that overzealous personal assistant nobody asked for. It tells you when to talk, how to pose, when to pretend you have an opinion. People don't even enjoy having opinions anymore. They're just collecting them like trading cards. They don't want to think for themselves. They want to look like they thought for themselves. There's a big difference. One requires effort, the other just requires confidence and a loud enough voice. And what fuels this ego? Insecurity, industrial strength insecurity. People are so unsure of themselves that they'll latch on to anything that makes them feel momentarily superior. Achievements, gadgets, hobbies, random facts, quotes they half remember from a book they didn't finish. Just enough to pretend they're part of some intellectual aristocracy. Ego thrives on these little ornaments. It's like decorating a Christmas tree made of anxiety. Every ornament is a distraction. Look at me, I'm successful. Look at me, I'm spiritual. Look at me, I'm humble. You ever see someone brag about being humble? That's peak insecurity disguised as self-awareness. "I'm so humble." I practically hover above the ground. Sure you do. People are constantly auditioning for admiration. It's the main role they want. They crave approval the way plants crave sunlight. Without it, they wilt. They start getting twitchy. They start making weird life decisions, like buying things they can't afford or agreeing to responsibilities they're not qualified for. All because ego whispers, "Say yes, it'll make you look impressive." And then you got people drowning in commitments, trying to juggle a life they never wanted. But hey, at least they look like they're doing great. It's like watching a clown on a unicycle juggling flaming torches while smiling through a panic attack. The crowd cheers, the clown keeps pedaling, and nobody asks if he wanted to be a dentist instead. And this performance thing, it happens everywhere. Workplaces, families, friendships, elevators. Yes, even elevators. You ever stand in an elevator with strangers? It's like everyone silently agrees to pretend the situation is completely normal. You're standing in a metal box, hovering among floors, practically breathing each other's recycled air, and nobody acknowledges the absurdity. They stare at the numbers changing like that's the most riveting entertainment since fire was invented. Why? Because acknowledging discomfort would break the performance. Ego won't allow awkwardness. Ego hates anything that reveals vulnerability. So everyone stands there pretending to be calm while mentally begging for the doors to open before they have to say something human. Dating is another arena for performance. People put on their best version of themselves. The limited edition, mint condition, emotionally stable version. They talk about their hobbies, their passions, their dreams. Meanwhile, the real version is hiding backstage with 3 unfinished projects, a collection of bad habits, and an existential crisis that started in high school. But ego says, don't bring that out yet. That's for the deluxe edition relationship package. So people pretend, they nod, they smile, they act like they meditate every morning and read philosophical literature for fun, when in reality they spent the afternoon arguing with their toaster. The entire social world is a talent show. Not a good one either. More like an amateur talent show in a school gym with bad lighting and worse acoustics. Everyone's trying to impress, but nobody really knows what the judges want. And half the time, the judges aren't even watching. They're too busy trying to impress someone else. It's a loop of insecurity, feeding ego, feeding insecurity, feeding ego. Like some psychological hamster wheel that never stops spinning. And the funniest part, everyone thinks they're the only one who feels insecure. Everyone's convinced they're the one outlier with doubts and fears and weird thoughts. But everybody is carrying the same emotional luggage, same suitcase, different stickers. Some people just slap motivational quotes on theirs to make it look more inspirational. Love, love. Yeah, right. Most of us are living, laughing occasionally, and loving coffee enough to survive Monday. But ego loves slogans. Ego loves pretending life is tidy, organized, and meaningful. Anything to avoid facing the mess underneath. And then you get those people who go the extra mile with their performance. They become walking billboards of fake confidence. They talk louder, stand taller, gesture wider, and behave like the universe gave them a VIP pass. But spend 10 minutes with them and you realize they're basically human Jenga towers. One wrong question and the whole structure collapses. They'll crumble into long monologues about stress, responsibility, decisions, expectations, all the burdens they pretend don't weigh on them. The ego can build a mighty facade, but it has the structural integrity of a cardboard castle in a rainstorm. Yet we all keep participating. Because backing out feels strange. It feels like showing up to a masquerade without a mask. You're exposed, so you keep the mask on. You keep playing your part. And society keeps running because everyone agrees to maintain the illusion. It's a collective cult of confidence. A giant mutual understanding that we will all continue pretending everything is fine. Even when everything feels like a puzzle someone mixed with another puzzle from a completely different box. But here's the twist. Deep down in the quiet moments when there's no audience, no expectations, no mirrors, everybody knows. They know it's all a performance. They know the ego is fragile. They know insecurity is driving the bus. They know confidence is something they rehearse, not something they live. And oddly enough, that's the most human thing about us. It's the one truth we all share but never say. That weird blend of ego and insecurity strutting on the outside and trembling on the inside. It's the universal secret. And if everyone stopped pretending for just one moment, one tiny moment, the whole world might actually relax. People might breathe. They might laugh at the absurdity. They might realize nobody knows what they're doing, and that's okay. But until then, the show goes on. The stage lights stay on. The actors keep acting. The audience keeps applauding. And the whole world keeps spinning like a giant talent show run by a committee of nervous contestants. You ever notice how a ridiculous amount of decisions in everyday life come from ego? Not intelligence, not logic, not wisdom, ego. Pure, unfiltered, freshly squeezed ego. And the best part is, people don't even know they're doing it. They actually think they're being rational. They think they're problem-solving, strategizing, and making moves. But half the time, the only move they're making is trying not to look insecure in front of someone who isn't even paying attention. Ego is like that overeager friend who keeps volunteering you for things you don't have the time, skill, or desire to do. You're sitting there minding your own business and ego jumps up like, "Don't worry, I got this." And suddenly you're nodding along in meetings, agreeing to responsibilities that make absolutely no sense. You're saying things like, "Oh yeah, I can definitely handle that," when deep down your brain is panicking like a cat in a bathtub. Nobody wants to look incapable. Nobody wants to look uncertain. So instead of admitting they don't know what's going on, they double down with unearned confidence. They inflate themselves like a parade balloon and hope nobody notices the string dragging behind them. And the moment they inflate, they start making decisions they never would have made if they were being honest. Honest people make simple decisions. Ego people make decisions with layers, like onions. Complicated, tear-inducing layers. They'll choose the option that makes them feel important, not the option that makes actual sense. They'll climb a ladder not because they want what's at the top, but because someone else is climbing a ladder and they don't want to look like they're standing still. People buy things because of ego. They take jobs because of ego. They enter arguments because of ego. They give advice nobody asked for because their ego insists they are an expert in topics they barely understand. You ever hear someone explaining something they obviously don't grasp? They'll start talking in circles, hoping that if they keep speaking long enough, a correct sentence will accidentally fall out of their mouth. But it never does. It's just verbal jazz, improvised nonsense designed to distract from the fact that they have no clue what's happening. And people are afraid to say 3 simple words that could make life so much easier. I don't know. The ego hates that sentence. I don't know is like kryptonite. The moment someone even tries to say it, ego grabs their tongue and forces them into a TED Talk. Suddenly they're explaining ancient history or offering health tips like they just finished medical school. They'll start drawing imaginary diagrams with their hands. You ever see that move? When someone doesn't know what they're talking about, they start waving their hands like they're conducting an invisible orchestra. No facts, just choreography. And people love pretending they're busy. Oh, they worship the idea of being busy. Being busy is the modern badge of honor. Nothing boosts the ego like telling someone, "He's sorry I've been swamped." Swamped! Most people aren't swamped. Most people aren't swamped. Most people are drowning in tasks they volunteered for just to impress someone who will forget their name next week. But you can't admit you're free because then you look unimportant. So people pile responsibilities on themselves like they're in a contest. Whoever collapses first gets a trophy. Even friendships suffer because of ego. People don't ask how you're doing because they care. They ask how you're doing so they can tell you how they're doing. It's conversational one-upmanship. You say, "I've been tired lately." And suddenly they're like, "Oh, you think you're tired? Let me tell you about my week." Suddenly, it's a competition for who's the most exhausted. Nobody is listening. They're just waiting for their turn to speak like actors waiting for a cue. And don't even get started on advice givers. The world is full of people who love giving advice on lives they wouldn't survive 5 minutes in. People who can't manage their own problems suddenly become motivational speakers in your problems. They say things like, "You need to put yourself out there," or "Have you tried being more confident?" Meanwhile, they spend their weekends arguing with their furniture. But ego says they must offer wisdom. Ego says silence makes them look uninformed. So they speak, a constant stream of empty inspirational air. People also make decisions based on imaginary audiences. They narrate their lives in their heads like someone is watching them. They'll refuse to do something simple, like ask for help or admit confusion, because they think the audience will judge them. Who is this audience? Nobody knows. It's just a mental collection of opinions they've invented to stress themselves out. People are starring in their own movie and assuming everyone else bought a ticket. Even simple tasks become ego competitions. You ever see people walk faster when someone else behind them walks faster? It's not about urgency, it's about pride. The ego refuses to be passed on the sidewalk. Suddenly it becomes an Olympic event. Two strangers racing to nowhere, both pretending they're just naturally brisk walkers. And don't forget the classic, people pretending to understand instructions. The ego forbids admitting confusion in public. If someone asks, "Did you get that?" the insecure ego must immediately respond, "Yep, absolutely, absolutely." Then the person goes home and tries to decode the instructions like they're deciphering ancient hieroglyphics. They'll squint, turn the paper, flip the box, try different angles like some kind of desperate archaeologist. And then they call someone else pretending they're just checking something, when really they're hoping the other person saved the instructions. Whole organizations run on ego. Meetings exist almost entirely because of ego. You ever sit through a meeting where nobody knows why they're there? Everyone is pretending it's important. Everyone is nodding like they're watching a great opera. Meanwhile, the meeting is about whether the color of the office printer labels should be changed. But people keep adding comments just so they look engaged. It's all participation theater. And the best part is when someone uses a word they clearly learned minutes before the meeting. They drop it into conversation like a secret password. Well, if we synergize the operational dynamics, everyone in the room nods because nobody wants to be the one who says, "What does that mean?" It means nothing. It's an ego fog machine. It creates the illusion of expertise while providing zero useful information. Ego also convinces people to overcommit. Humans can't accept that they're limited. They think saying a no makes them weak. But saying yes when you can't deliver, ego loves that. Ego wants to look capable. Even if it means future, you will suffer. It's the emotional equivalent of buying clothes that are too small because you plan to diet a later. You're not helping yourself. You're just inflating your imaginary resume. And you see it in hobbies too. People don't do things because they enjoy them. They do them because they want to look like the kind of person who enjoys them. They buy fancy equipment, expensive tools, specialized gear. Then they use it once and leave it in the garage like a retired athlete. Ego got what it wanted. The appearance of ambition. Even in small talk, ego takes over. People say things like, "I'm working on myself," or "I'm growing," or "I'm learning a lot lately." They're not learning anything. They're just tired and want to sound philosophical. But ego wants them to appear enlightened, so they speak in vague wisdoms that mean absolutely nothing. A lot of people have opinions not because they thought about them, but because they're afraid of not having one. The ego refuses to let them say, "I'm not sure." So they choose a side like picking a random door in a game show. And once they pick it, their ego won't allow them to reconsider. Even when new information appears, ego whispers, "No, stick with your choice. Switching sides makes you look unsure." So people cling to opinions like they're life rafts, even when the opinion is obviously sinking. People get offended because of ego. Not because they're hurt, but because their ego expected the world to treat them like royalty. And when it doesn't, their ego throws a tantrum. Meanwhile, their insecurities are sitting quietly in the back, eating popcorn, enjoying the chaos. And behind all these decisions, behind all these performances, behind every confident facade is the same tiny whisper. Insecurities trying to hide themselves by bulldozing their way through life. Ego is the mask. Insecurity is the face behind it. And society is one big masquerade where nobody wants to be the first one to take their mask off. But the funniest thing is, if people drop the ego, even for a day, the world would probably work better than it ever has. People might actually listen. They might think. They might admit the obvious. "I don't know. I messed up. I need help." Or the classic, "I'm completely confused." But ego won't allow it. Ego keeps the show running. Ego keeps people pretending, competing, performing, acting like life is a contest they can win with the right amount of chest puffing. You ever notice how people act like insecurity is some rare condition only a few folks suffer from? Like it's a limited edition emotional disorder. "I'm insecure," as if it's a confession. Meanwhile, everyone else in the room is nodding like they have everything under control while quietly praying you don't ask them a single personal question. Insecurity isn't rare. Insecurity is the default operating system for the entire species. We're all running the same outdated emotional software with no updates available. People walk around thinking everyone else is confident, stable, built like emotional skyscrapers. But if you've ever had a real conversation with anyone, and I mean a real one, not the how's life, a busy, the same. Kind, you find out quickly that humans are basically houseplants with anxiety. All we really need is sunlight, water, and constant reassurance we're doing okay. And even then, we still droop a little. Insecurity is behind almost everything we do. You think people bought weird gadgets or random improvements for their homes because they really needed them. No. They bought them because someone else had one, and their insecurity whispered, if you don't get one too, people will think you're slipping. That's the real engine of society right there. Not innovation, not inspiration. Insecurity-induced shopping. People will buy things just to feel like they belong, or that they're successful, or that they're finally upgrading themselves. They'll buy juice machines they never use, athletic equipment they never touch, cookbooks they never read, all in the hope that their possessions will convince others they're doing better than they actually are. Meanwhile, the treadmill becomes a very expensive clothes hanger, and the juice machine becomes a shrine to unfulfilled ambition. And people love comparing themselves. Oh, they'll deny it. But the moment they see someone else doing something, they start measuring themselves like they're in some cosmic competition. Somebody gets a new car. Suddenly, your perfectly functional car feels like an embarrassment. Somebody announces a personal achievement. Suddenly, you're rethinking your entire life path. Insecurity is like this little gremlin sitting on your shoulder, poking you every time someone else succeeds. Hey, don't you feel like you're falling behind? What? No, I didn't. Until you brought it up, you emotional parasite. And the funny thing is, most of the people everyone is comparing themselves to, they're insecure too. They're posting perfect pictures and bragging about their lives because they're scared of looking ordinary. It's insecurity competing with insecurity. It's two people racing, both convinced the other one has some secret advantage, when in reality neither one actually knows where the finish line is. Insecurity makes people follow trends like they're running for office. Well, they don't even like half the things they imitate. They just don't want to be the one person who doesn't get it. So they pretend. They laugh at jokes they don't understand, nod along to conversations they can't follow, and pretend to be fascinated by things they secretly find confusing or boring. Insecurity doesn't care if you're happy. It only cares if you're fitting in. You ever see people panic when they don't know a reference? It's great. Someone mentions a movie or a book, and instead of just saying, I've never seen it, people will do this theatrical performance of recognition. They'll snap their fingers, tilt their head, squint a little. The universal facial expression for I'm going to pretend I know what you're talking about. Then they'll mumble something vague like, oh yeah, nah, I think I heard about that. No, you didn't. You barely heard the sentence. Insecurity also makes people terrified of silence. Have you ever been in a group where the conversation dies for 2 seconds? It's 2 seconds. People panic like the earth stops spinning. Someone always jumps in with some random fact or an unnecessary story just because the quiet made them feel exposed. Humans fear silence more than confusion, failure, or running out of batteries. Silence is where the truth leaks out, and insecurity hates the truth. It prefers noise, lots of noise, to distract from the fact that nobody knows what they're doing. People's personalities get shaped by insecurity too. You ever meet someone who brags constantly? That's insecurity in a fancy hat. People who brag are basically saying, please like me before you notice I don't like myself. And people who desperately need to be right all the time. That's insecurity, clutching the steering wheel with white knuckles. It isn't about truth. It's about fear. Fear of being wrong, fear of looking small, fear of losing the illusion that they're smarter than they really are. You ever try disagreeing with someone who's deeply insecure? It's like poking a balloon full of bees. They inflate, they buzz, they get louder, they throw out random facts, unrelated stories, and philosophical declarations until you finally surrender just to restore peace. Insecurity doesn't want resolution. It wants domination. But only because it's terrified of disappearing. And then there are the perfectionists. Oh, perfectionists are the superstars of insecurity. They act like they're striving for excellence, but really they're just terrified of judgment. They'll redo the same task 11 times because it's not quite right. Meanwhile, the only thing not right is the tiny voice in their head whispering, "If you slip once, everyone will know you're a fraud." Perfectionists aren't aiming for greatness. They're hiding from exposure. Insecurity also sneaks into simple decisions. People ask others what to wear, what to eat, what to watch, not because they actually need input, but because they're scared their own choice will be judged, as if someone is secretly taking notes. This person picked the wrong sandwich today. Strike one. Nobody cares. But insecurity convinces people they're always on trial. And confidence? Real confidence? So rare it's practically a myth. Most so-called confident people are just insecure folks who learned how to pose. They've mastered the posture, the tone, the gestures. They practiced. Real confidence doesn't need to announce itself, it just exists quietly. But insecurity shows up like a marching band, loud, flashy, and desperately trying to distract everyone from what's missing. Insecurity even affects how people relax. They can't relax without permission. They can't enjoy themselves unless everyone else enjoys themselves. They can't even take a day off without explaining why. A day off, as if rest needs a justification. But insecurity says, if you don't explain yourself, someone will think you're lazy. So people send messages saying you're just taking a mental health day. Just say you're tired. Everyone's tired. The whole planet is sleepy. And social interaction. Insecurity everywhere. People rehearse what they're going to say. They rehearse greetings, jokes, goodbyes, handshakes. They practice small talk in the mirror like they're preparing an audition. And if something goes slightly wrong, one awkward pause, one weird phrasing, insecurity turns it into a catastrophe. They'll replay that moment for months. Meanwhile, the other person forgot it 10 seconds later. The truth is, insecurity is the invisible puppet master of modern behavior.